You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor Podcast, Episode 6.
When you get in a bad place, your vision becomes very narrow, and you're not seeing the possibilities, you're not seeing the way you could possibly turn that around. And so we would support them in starting to turn around and focus on what they wanted and how there could be something good coming out of this. And it was amazing what would happen. Things would turn around.
You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor Podcast.
Life purpose, spirituality, higher calling, personal growth, meaningful life.
We ask the deep questions about living a balanced life of meaning, purpose, and joy.
Passion, know thyself, be mindful, spiritual practice, aha moments, life lessons, balance.
It is time to welcome your host, Angie Swartz.
It's my pleasure today to welcome Kathryn Alice to the show. Kathryn Alice is considered one of the U.S.'s foremost experts on soulmates and dating spiritually. Author of the bestseller Love Will Find You, she teaches around the world and is responsible for thousands of people recovering from heartbreak and finding the love of their lives. Her work has been featured, well, it looks like it's been featured everywhere, but her work has been featured in Psychology Today, USA Today, the New York Times, Parade, Body and Soul, NBC, CNN, and many other media outlets. Kathryn is married to her own soulmate and has 4 boys, which I have seen, and they are adorable. So, Kathryn, welcome to the show. It's so nice to see you today.
Hi, well, it's wonderful to be here, Angie. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm so interested in your work about love, and I met you in a course that you taught here in Encinitas maybe last year. But what I really want to talk about today is you and your story about your purpose.
Okay.
So, do you know your life purpose?
Yes.
And what is it?
To help people find love and manifest what they want.
Find love and manifest what they want. And you got to doing this work through a path of studying spirituality at Agape, is that right?
Yes, I sure did.
What was your aha moment to get you to this life purpose and this work?
Well, there's probably a series of them. I went to Agape because I myself was going through a painful divorce. And at first it was just for my own growth, but my aha moment was probably when one of the ministers realized that I was really good at helping people turn things around, calming people down in crisis. And she picked me and mentored me. And the fact that anybody saw anything in me was amazing because until that time I wasn't much of a success at anything.
And what kind of work were you doing when she discovered this talent of yours?
I was a writer and a publicist. I did PR writing and work, and I was okay successful, but never huge success. It felt hard for me.
And so at Agape, were you doing spiritual counseling then? What work were you doing when she noticed your talents?
I was in the classes, and at some point, you go on the track to become a practitioner, and I was doing sessions and doing some leadership work, and she just said, you're good at this. I'd like to plug you in to crisis support.
Right. I bet there's some amazing stories about crisis management you could tell our audience on another call.
Absolutely.
That's probably something that is worth a book itself.
Yeah.
So tell us, now that not now, but since that time when you knew what your purpose was, how did that affect you and your life and your work? What happened next?
Every single thing fell into place. I think I also have purpose just to love and be loved and be a mom, for example. And after that, it was set me on the path where everything became successful in my life. And I got confidence out of it, and I realized that I can be the captain of my own ship and manifest whatever I want and choose instead of feeling so victim-y. And so every single thing changed out of that.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm sure everyone listening is very inspired by that, and it can happen to anyone. Synchronicity is a beautiful thing once you step into your purpose.
It's kind of amazing how that works.
It is amazing. It really is a divine experience.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have hints along the way? Do you think you figured it out all at once? Like if you were to go back and look at your bookshelf over time, or the activities that you had done or what you'd written? Were there any hints out there that this was your purpose?
There were hints, and I see with most people I work with that there's a trend and there's a pull towards something. I was always, to be honest, and you'll laugh, I was always a little bossy. I was the oldest child out of 3, and so I was kind of like the mom to them already, and definitely was bossy and kind of purposeful. I wasn't shy about telling people what they should do with their life, which is, I don't completely do that now, but I do help guide them to that. And I was always very nurturing and supportive. And then writing-wise, it was always nonfiction, informational articles that I was writing often. And so in that way, I'm still doing it, but in a bigger journey. And my mom told me that when I was little, all the time, my favorite thing to do was create things. And art projects, just anything creative. I love to write. And it's kind of, if you think about it, it's what I do now for a living. So it's pretty cool.
Right. I think oftentimes people read all the books, What Color is Your Parachute, all of the literature that's out there that say to go back and look at the things you loved to do when you were in high school or when you were a child. And maybe it's a little discounted that we don't think we could have been that wise at that young age, but we really are.
We do. We're almost wiser because we're not questioning our inner guidance.
Right.
So
how did you get to love? I mean, you're talking about crisis management. How did you get to be the love guru?
Well, at one time, I started teaching workshops in every major area of crisis, and they were well attended. But when I started on love, it was off the hook. People were coming in droves. And so in that way, I followed the need. Most people who would come in suicidal, it would be over a love issue. And so I saw this need. And when I started tapping into it and offering help for people, it just went well.
So you listened. You listened to what was showing up in front of you.
I did. There was definitely a flow going on there.
Sure. So you mentioned people that would come in that were suicidal. Would you see those people in counseling sessions or over the Agape prayer line, or where did they come from?
Well, we had a clinic where people could walk in, and we also offered phone support. And I'm not directing it any longer, but I think all of that is still there at Agape. And so we were offering countless ways to support people through crises. And so the most acute people would walk into the crisis clinic hyperventilating and just in a bad place.
And what would happen when they sat down with you?
We perfected this 2-minute calm down, because you can't really do anything with anybody until they can be in a space of listening, or at least calm down.
Right.
And so the first thing we do is a 2-minute calm down, and then we would refocus what they were experiencing, the meaning they would ascribe to it, which was pretty erroneous. When you get in a bad place, your vision becomes very narrow, and you're not seeing the possibilities, you're not seeing the way you could possibly turn that around. And so we would support them in starting to turn around and focus on what they wanted and how there could be something good coming out of this. And it was amazing what would happen. Things would turn around.
What a great resource. I think lots of people need that and don't know where to find it, particularly if they're not on a spiritual path or involved in a spiritual community. I'll add the number for the Agape prayer line and anything else to our show notes for people that might be in that kind of a crisis mode. You wouldn't be talking to Kathryn, but as she stated, there's still a great group of people there that might be able to help.
Yes.
So crisis management and love, very different. Now would you say that you're doing crisis management now or something different?
My work has gone so broad that I don't always work with people privately myself. I couldn't. There's just too many people who use my work. But definitely I have put out a number of books and products to help people through the worst crises, like a divorce or a breakup. Those are some of them, a relationship that's falling apart. And so I do, but more remotely, just through my writings and the products, the audios, things like that.
Right. And you have a long list of places that you've taught around the country on your website, which anyone should go look there at Kathryn Alice at Kathryn's work. It's quite impressive.
Thank you.
What role do you think spirituality plays in finding your purpose and igniting your life?
I think it's everything, but I think some people wouldn't call it that. They don't realize that their spirituality is their calling, that they're almost synonymous, and they might think it's too airy-fairy, but in fact, that is that spirituality, that inner deep voice, that connection they have with Source. it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So tell me more. What about your spiritual beliefs?
I believe that there is one God and that we all call it something different. Some people call it life or nature even, and that we're all, even in all the different religions, we're all worshiping the same God. That's number one. And then number two is that we're all a part of it, that it's inside of us, and as we tap and open up to that, it can direct us to our life purpose and to everything that would fulfill it. It's all contained within that purpose, is how to fulfill it and fulfill it well. And that as we open up to a greater belief system, as we open up to greater possibility, that's what we can get, what we believe acts as true. And so those are the basics of it. And I am a great teacher of having faith, that faith as opposed to fear is the most spiritual thing you can do, and it opens all the doors.
And so I would imagine you use that a lot when you're teaching or in your programs for people that are waiting to meet someone new or trying to find love. Faith has a lot to do with that, yes?
It does. Being single and looking for love is fraught with so much fear and so many worries that if all I did was calm people down, it would provide a great opening to find love.
Right. And I like at least what I've seen of your work, I like that you encourage people to live a bigger life. You know, it's not just about finding love. I mean, maybe it is in the end, but you're talking to people about, you know, do what you love, get out there, enjoy your life, be active, be available, versus thinking so much about where is this person coming from.
Yes, absolutely. The where they're coming from, most people would never predict. It's so magical. They're going to have this magical love story, and so it's kind of a fruitless endeavor, as opposed to just lining up and knowing that they're hot and a catch for their one. Walking in that light, it opens everything up.
I look forward to hearing more of those types of stories about people that have been doubtful. And I know you have thousands of stories about people that were doubtful about love and then walked into the most delicious part of their lives.
I do. That's for sure.
So, and we can find some of those in your books?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in telling stories because it helps us relate to people and gives us hope. And so I always give examples and stories, and I have so many more than I'll ever use.
That must just be wonderful for you to be doing this work that is so much fun and so rewarding and so wonderful for others.
Thank you. It is. And I always tell people, just send me your picture. It's why I do this work. You know, that's my payoff, is just seeing you happily in love. And so I do. I get pictures every week.
Nice. Very nice. So let's go back for a few minutes ago. You said, I hadn't been very successful in my life up until this point. Did you use any tools to help you know yourself better that you would recommend to others?
Well, at the time, it was the Centers for Spiritual Living, their whole philosophy of that you find the divine in you. And so I used all of my studies to get there, for sure. It's hard to pinpoint what came first because as I became successful, I became more sure of myself. I got more faith, even on the fly, and then it just kept getting bigger and expanding and getting more wonderful.
And if someone was interested in looking into the types of services or classes that you're talking about at the Centers for Spiritual Living, where would they find more information about that?
They have a website, and you can find a center near you as well. Now, I just want to say that since I started doing this, so many people wanted to do what I was doing or wanted my life, because the minute I found out I could create anything, I really got busy doing that I have even my deliberate creation process. It's a 4-step process that I teach people on how to find their purpose and how to find the way to do what they want to do and make it successful. And it really has worked for a lot of people too. So I even took that, and it's based on those same principles, and I teach it in my work all the time.
Okay, good. Good. Well, we'll put a link to that work in our show notes so that people can find that and look into it.
Okay.
So what about you? What about your daily practice? What helps you stay centered and balanced and connected to something bigger?
I have a million of them. I couldn't teach this if I didn't walk my talk. I meditate and I pray, and I do guided meditations, which I use for others often. That I teach, it has worked for me, or I wouldn't be teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do affirmations, and I make a list of what I want. I identify it. Oftentimes I'll map out a few steps just to kind of get my juices flowing and see what's going well, like that. I use a million spiritual practices every day.
If you had let's say you're on a trip somewhere, because I know you like to travel with your family, and your day is crazy busy. You've got the social, the beach, you're teaching, you've got a call to make, and your day is so busy. Are you still in practice on those days?
Probably more so. There are times when I have to let it all go and just be in the moment. That's a practice. Sometimes I'll have a bad moment if I get too stressed out, and then I'll usually love my child if they're handy. That helps. Or calm myself down and remind myself it's not make or break. I have pivoting tools, I call them, that I use and I teach. Pivoting means that when you're having a bad moment, if you can take the lesson from it and get on with things and get yourself back to a good place, things will get better and be retrieved. You can retrieve a whole, situation that could really go badly.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
I teach something similar, a little bit different than what you're talking about, but I try to have everyone write on, when they're having great days, to write down all the things that they would do for themselves on a bad day, because everybody has a bad day once in a while, and it's those times that we can't get ourselves out of it.
Exactly. When you're in a good space is the best time to pave the way for when you're in a bad space. And I always tell people, as much as you will fight it and not want to do anything when you're in a bad space, it's the best time to experiment on what will make it better the most quickly.
Very good advice. I agree. And we're not likely to do it. That becomes a practice also, to know that when you're in the valley, so to speak, I'm not on the peak, that you've got to practice your practice then so that the tools will work better.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about the physical body. What do you think the correlation between what's going on in your physical body and your life purpose is?
Well, I tend to think that your body is going to feel better when you're walking your purpose. I have a belief that every single physical symptom is related to something we're going through emotionally or in a way which we're off. And so the more we line up with who we are, with what we're meant to do, with what we want to do, the less physical symptoms even pop up and things can be healed.
I agree. I teach the same. So anyone out there that's listening, if you're having some physical issues, the next step obviously is to take care of yourself, but the next step is to go look at what might be underlying those things. What are the hints and the gifts that are coming out of any physical pain that you have in your life? Something is trying to tell you something.
Yeah, and love is such a healer. I have so many stories of people who were sick who got healed, even who were never supposed to heal. Or terminal, who did heal when they found love, or people who were so sick that they let themselves be vulnerable for once in their lives, and then they met somebody right in the when they were really ill. So it's interesting that correlation as well, but love always is healing.
The magic elixir.
Yes.
Love the magic elixir.
That's right.
My next question, I think you've already answered. You talked about, it's about synchronicity and what role that plays in your life, but you talked about that already. You said, once I knew what I was supposed to be doing, everything just fell into place. I think you met your husband after that. Is that right?
I did. I met him after I was producing Soulmates for other people by a couple years. But I knew he was coming. I knew with all of my heart. I even knew vaguely, like even almost the month and year. And so I was getting antsy, like, well, where is he? Because I can feel this. And then he did come, and we were thrown together in a way that I teach will happen that really you never could have planned. And it was necessary because I'm introverted, don't get out that much, and my husband's shy. So we were thrown together in a way that happens when you really are on purpose, when you're in that realm of synchronicity.
I would have never thought you were an introvert. How interesting.
I'm a functional introvert, and I help people to become functional introverts so that we can operate well in the world. But when you're introverted, it just means you need to have your alone time. You need to be within. You might be a homebody just to get your soul fed rather than being fed by other people necessarily.
Right.
So, yeah.
Can I ask you about money?
Sure.
So do you make more money now or less money than you did before you started following your purpose?
That's when abundance knocked on my door, is when I found my purpose.
Nice. Wonderful. And have your values changed?
Probably some. I value having fun a lot more. Of course, I value love a lot more. I used to be kind of a workhorse. I grew up in that kind of family, and I realized working by the sweat of your brow, you're probably not on your purpose, for one thing, and it's the hard way. Mm-hmm. And so it amazes me how much money I make doing something that I don't even consider work. It's fun.
You mentioned what you learned growing up with your family. Have you encountered any resistance? Maybe not now, but in the beginning from friends or family?
Completely. To this day, they joke that I just pulled a career out of my bum. Like, they can't believe I make, they're very traditional, and I am a love guru. And they've never known anybody do anything remotely like this. And so they are marveling. And I got questioned all the time to the point that I became ultra successful. And then you couldn't really question it anymore because, you're a nationally or internationally known author. You're making quite a bit of money doing this. You're helping so many people. You can't really question it. But I internalized a lot of that. And so I questioned myself a lot. And that's why I have my wall of weddings, which I think you saw. I have all these things to remind myself that I'm not chopped liver, that I'm doing really good things in the world, and I'm having phenomenal success, and I can be proud of myself.
Right. It's the one measuring stick that everybody can see clearly. What are we doing as individuals to increase the greater good of the world? And you're clearly doing that because love is on everybody's minds.
Yes. Thank you.
I want to ask you some more questions in the lightning round, but first, this is such a fun topic, and I didn't ask you about this question, but I'd love to hear a few of your really funny stories about love, if you're open to telling us.
Okay. I've had quite a few people have a terrible first date and still end up together. And so I use that as a faith builder for people. One lady, and I have a lot of people who are older find love as well as younger, but one lady had a huge hot flash right on her date. And she was so embarrassed and just thought she had blown it. There was no way, but she was sweating bullets and turning red, really uncomfortable. And her date, who was taken with her, he said, let me get the waiter to move the heat lamp away. Let's get your sweater off. Let's order some cold water. He was so solicitous of her, and they laughed about it, and it kind of sealed the deal because they did end up getting married.
So you heard it here, folks. I know I've also heard you talk about people that, and I think this happened in maybe the class that I was in with you once, that people in your classes have ended up dating or going on dates that met sitting next to each other in a circle.
We have a huge amount of weddings that come out of my workshops, and they're not for that reason. They're more just to open up to love. More people will go out and meet somebody in a week. But yes, there's a huge trend of people who got married who met in my workshops because that is when, you're it's a good space. We have fun. There's no pressure. I ask people to connect and be themselves. There's a very high vibe, and it's a rich place, just right for finding somebody and meeting somebody. So yes, that does happen.
And one last story that you want to share?
Well, one of the things, this is a funny story. One of the things that I teach people is to create a template for love in any way that they can. Buy a present ahead of time for the love they haven't met yet. They do an inner soul call that I teach, and then I want them to seal the deal by getting a present or something. One lady found a wedding dress. She wasn't really looking, but she had wedding on her mind. So she found a wedding dress, and she put it on a mannequin in her bedroom. And her friends were dying. They thought she was out to lunch. She had to hide it when dates came over. But she ended up wearing that very wedding dress down the aisle to marrying her soulmate.
So it's an act as if.
It's an act as if. You can't just do that. The inner work has to happen as well. But it's kind of an affirmation. It's planning, looking down the road to the future you want, and then it will happen. And it does.
One of our mutual friends, Alice Bandy, she talks about love in the sense of if you want more love in your life, focus on what it is that you have in your life that you already do love. And love that more, love more deeply. Mm-hmm. I think it's somewhat counterintuitive to what we were taught and what we practiced in our earlier years as teens and 20s and 30s, or I guess we can keep going with that number, but we'll stop there.
Right.
But I love that, just love. Put love in front of you everywhere and see where you go.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. How about a quick round of short answer questions?
Okay.
All right. Do you think passion and purpose are the same things?
Close.
Do you think everybody has a life purpose?
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how important is following your joy in igniting your life purpose?
10.
10. Did you ever quit your job to follow your purpose? And do you think somebody needs to quit?
I did. I absolutely did. And I think that some people need to quit and some can do their purpose right where they are.
Right. Me too. So for you, Kathryn, what brings you great, great joy?
My husband and my children, my family and friends.
And if you unexpectedly amassed a good-sized fortune, more than you have today, what would you do differently with your life?
Nothing.
Nothing. We all want to get there, so we can all say nothing. And how about some recommendations? And just in closing, some recommendations for our listeners. Do you have a resource that you would put out there for people on personal growth or spiritual practice or love?
All right, well, I'm going to start with my stuff, of course, because I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe in it. If you go on Amazon and you search my name, every Tuesday there's a free book. It's a Kindle book, which you can read on a smartphone, on a tablet, anything. And so if you're looking for love or recovering from a breakup, you can get free resources every Tuesday on Amazon from me personally, and I love to give those to your audience.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, and beyond that, definitely Centers for Spiritual Living. They're all over. They're a great resource to start your spiritual journey toward your purpose as well.
Thank you. And the best way for people to contact you is that at KathrynAlice.com?
Yes, if you go to KathrynAlice.com, and it's spelled KathrynAlice.com, there's some free articles. I always have different events going on you can jump in on, and there are many ways to get some support right there and get hold of me too.
Great. And so do you ever offer promotions on your products that people could look out for, anything specific around Valentine's Day, or how does that work for you?
Well, this Valentine's Day, as a matter of fact, I am doing a cruise. I'm teaching on it, and there's some other really good teachers who are friends of mine. And if anybody wants to go, there's never been a better place to meet people, because I'm going to give everybody a hunt, a scavenger hunt. And it's going to involve connecting with people in the way I teach. And also if people who are in a couple will learn more on conscious communication and taking the relationship to a higher level. And so in that kind of way, that's Valentine's Day. I always do something around Valentine's Day that's fun, usually tropical, because I love to get out of the cold.
Do you know where the cruise is going?
Yes, I do. It's coming from L.A., and then it's going down to two of my favorite places, Cabo, and then also Puerto Vallarta, which is some of the best boogie boarding and the warmest water this time of year that I've ever seen.
Very
7
nice.
days.
7 days with Kathryn Alice talking about love. Oh, my. I think we're coming to a close. Is there anything else that you want to mention or add about those people out there that are looking for their purpose or looking for love?
I would say that they do go hand in hand, that possibly following your purpose can help you to find love. Many times when you plug in, it all happens at once. But I want to tell your listeners that they absolutely get love. There's no question about it, and that their purpose as well will contain everything necessary to make them successful and fulfilled with it.
Kathryn, we did it. We did it under our time frame. It's been my pleasure talking to you. I know I could talk to you forever about all of your wonderful stories about love. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Angie, so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. And for the rest of you out there, we'll see you the next time. We thank you for listening to the Life Purpose Advisor podcast. Please subscribe on iTunes, and if you like this episode, we appreciate your ratings and your reviews. And go find your purpose.